Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to AIVRTTAC and Northwest Indian College TBR Institute webinar on the onboarding tool and orientation checklist. This was previously scheduled for January, and unfortunately we had to cancel that. And so we're happy that you guys were all able to join us today on this important tool that we're going to present on. We're all pretty familiar with the Zoom instructions. We do have a chat box that you can enter in your name, your job title, your project name. If there's anyone sitting with you, can you please also put their name in there? And if there's a tribal greeting, you can put that in there as well. If you're joining us by phone and you would like to speak, it's *6 to talk and *9 to raise your hand. We're pretty familiar with the general guidelines of Zoom. If you would like to ask a question, you can raise your hand. There's a feature at the bottom where you can do that as well. You can also put your question in chat. If you want to show your face, I know that it's awkward. So I don't like putting my face on Zoom either, but here I am. Want to introduce yourself, Laura?
Sure. Good morning. I'm Laura Maudsley. I work as the director of the TBR Institute at Northwest Indian College. I have worked as a program director with the Stillaguamish tribe. And also before that, I was a counselor at a couple different tribes. So that's kind of where my talking about onboarding will come from, that experience.
Good morning. My name is Winona Reid. I am the Outreach and Dissemination Coordinator for AIVRTTAC. I am here on the beautiful campus of Northern Arizona University. We sit at the base of the sacred San Francisco Peaks. This building that you see on the screen is the Native American Cultural Center that is just literally across the street from me. So I kind of I'm behind this bus over here. That's where my office sits. So I'm happy to be able to present this with you and be with you today. We have some acknowledgements that I wanted to make sure that we address. The first one is we would like to thank RSA for their support of this project and our activities. They have been supportive in all our endeavors. And so I don't know if there's anyone on here from RSA, but we thank them for their help. I also want to acknowledge the original the AIVRTTAC staff who developed the original orientation checklist that is on our website. And that is Mark Espino, rest his soul, and Dr. Lee Gassioma. They were the ones who did the original orientation checklist form. I also want to acknowledge Paula Sinez and Suzanne Malson, who joined me on the first webinar. I shared that in the presentations that we did a webinar in 2020, in October 2020. And then it has since been updated, and that's what we're going to present on. We had some edits and some recommendations to the tool, and those people were Kyle Beam, Lee Gassioma again, Thomas Draghi, and Kelly Roberts. We have a knowledge translation team who helped with the editing and recommendations. It went through a series of people, and that was Rhonda Jensen, Jamie Hall, Arden Day, and Izzy Cass. Everything that we do here at AIVRTTAC is a team effort, and it's important to acknowledge everyone who was involved in this. The webinar objectives are, we want to discuss the difference between onboarding and orientation. A lot of times people use those two terms, and they're actually two different things happening. We're going to learn how to tailor the onboarding tool and orientation checklist to meet your project needs when hiring new staff and introducing them to AIVRS and program projects. So this tool that we developed, it is going to be yours. It is up to you guys to add and delete and modify it to meet your needs. And so that's what is exciting about it, is that once we send this to you, it's going to be something that you guys can edit and update. We're going to also learn how an onboarding plan can support a successful hire, and that's what we want. As you all, I don't know if you guys ever heard this term, but it's been pretty popular on some of like the radio shows that I've been listening to, and it's called the Great Resignation. And in November of last year, November of 2021, all cross country, all different fields had a lot of people who quit their jobs and they moved on to other careers. And I feel like we have seen that with the AIVRS programs as well. There have been a lot of people who have left the AIVRS programs, and so that has led to a lot of new hires, a lot of new counselors, a lot of new VRTTACs, and a lot of new directors. And so we're really hoping that this presentation and this tool is helpful in having a successful hire. Some of the questions that I put out there were, do you have new staff that need onboarding for their new AIVRS position? Are you a new AIVRS director? Are you interested in how you can help your new staff member with their new AIVRS position? Are you planning to hire new staff and need help with an onboarding plan? You can answer any of those in the chat, or you can turn off your mic as well. But this is an important presentation because we are going to be having the next year, we have a lot of stuff planned that you guys can look into and add into your onboarding plan. In today's agenda, we're going to provide an overview of the October 2020 webinar quickly and shortly. We're going to share our experience. Laura and I are going to share our experiences with onboarding and orientation. And we're going to explain the reasoning and the process of updating the new onboarding tool and orientation checklist. And we're going to have a Q&A time where you guys can ask your questions, and we'll have some answering. And then lastly is a survey of this webinar. That's important for you guys as well. So we're going to briefly just go over the last webinar. We're going to talk about what the definition of onboarding and orientation is. In that last webinar, if you haven't looked at it, it's still a current webinar. It's still an important tool on our website, and we highly suggest you guys watching it and using it. In that webinar, we also talked about other components of onboarding. So onboarding is kind of like the bigger picture, and it's going to take longer. And within onboarding, there's orientation, there's compliance, there's clarification, there's culture, and there's connection. Today, we're just going to focus on orientation. Also in that last webinar, and I thought that was important to bring it up again, is that we talked a lot about remote onboarding. And because there's been a lot of new hires, you guys are either if you're a director and you're hiring new staff, or you are a new director, in some locations there's still remote onboarding because of the COVID pandemic. And so I wanted to, and that was important at that time, and it's still important today, still almost 18 months later. And that is to relax. Almost all of us are in the same place. We're all still either working a hybrid, working from home and working in the office, or you're 100% working from home. And that can be kind of overwhelming and difficult, especially when you're hiring new people. And how do you go about that? We talk about having a virtual onboarding buddy, where someone who is familiar with your office and how you guys communicate over Zoom or phone or text, or we even heard some people even communicate in Facebook Messenger. So having someone around to help you and have that buddy system. You know, you want to get them up and running online as soon as possible, because things are moving along and you want them to be able to become an important part of your team. And so you need to make sure that they have internet connection, they have a cell phone, they have a laptop, they have everything that they need to be able to work virtually. You know, concentrating on competency. What do they need to know in their first 90 days, first 120 days, 12 months down the road, and being clear with them that, you know, you don't need to know everything within the next 30 days. It's going to take a process. It's going to take time. And in that webinar, I kind of explained my one of the jobs that I went to and my orientation and my onboarding process. And so I think it's just important to develop a plan, making sure that they know what they need to know, maybe at certain milestones, like 6 months down the road and 12 months. So they're not becoming overwhelmed. We talked about having clear policies and procedures around equipment and supplies and checking in and having maybe a calendar, office calendar. You want to keep things interactive. You know, one of the things that Wayne always starts our staff meetings with is a question of the, you know, he poses a question to all of us, and they're, you know, what's your favorite food, or where is a place that you want to visit, like a dream vacation or something like that. And it's a really nice icebreaker for all of us. We learn about each other and similarities. I didn't realize how many people on my staff didn't like tomatoes. So you learn, you know, so keeping things interactive especially when you're not with each other in person. Orientation may not be 1 to 2 days as normal. You may need to spread it out over a few weeks. You know, some of us have Zoom fatigue, and being online is kind of stressful. We just had a 2-day meeting with our funders, and they were long days. There was 4 to 5 hours, and then we had meetings before or after those Zoom meetings. So it was, you know, 6 to 7 hours on Zoom each one of those days. And by this weekend, my eyes were hurting. So just making sure that you spread out some of those times. Also in that last webinar, we shared some cartoons, and I'll give you guys a little bit of time to read these and look at these, because they're really spot on when you're talking about onboarding and orientation. And I just love them, and they're kind of quick reminders of my past experience with onboarding, especially this one in the left-hand corner. Remember on your first day when I said you need to jump right in? And it kind of felt like I was like jumping out of a plane. Sink or swim, this one at the bottom. I've been in certain situations where it was like that. It was, you know, I was put in a cubicle and like sink or swim. And I had to learn pretty fast on some jobs. So, and a buddy system. In that webinar, we defined onboarding. Onboarding is a series of events, including orientation, designed to help new staff understand how to be successful. That's important, is that onboarding is, we want our staff to be successful in their day-to-day jobs. It's how their work contributes to the AIVRS project and the tribe as a whole. Onboarding typically takes 6 to 12 months for employees who have no previous experience working with AIVRS projects. One of the stories I talked about was going to a conference in my first few months of my job. This was another job, and that I went to a presentation, and the person presenting basically told all of us that it was going to take 3 to 4 years for us to figure out our job. And at that time, I didn't I was like, oh no, I'm gonna hurry up and learn it quickly within the next 6 months. But I'll never forget that, because it really did take almost 4 years in that job for me to finally get it, to have those everyday experiences with the faculty that I was working with, the ups and downs, the mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes, and I had to learn from those mistakes. And I had a very good person who helped me, who never, I never really got in trouble for mistakes, but I had to learn through that. And it made me a better research administrator. And so I do look back on that and tell people, oh, it's going to take you a good 4 years to learn a lot of that stuff that's going to carry you through the years. And we also talked about orientation, because a lot of people use those first few days as they think it's onboarding, and sometimes it's orientation. So we wanted to make sure people knew that orientation is just one part of onboarding. And onboarding is when you're just learning about the tribe, the department, the project, what your specific job responsibilities is. It's the paperwork that you're doing for your payroll or your taxes, your benefits. You're learning about the tribal culture and the values. You're learning about products and tools. So those are very short parts of the whole onboarding. So onboarding is gonna be a longer process. And then for some people, they may have a lot of transferable skills and it will go quickly. Maybe they've worked in the state VR office. Maybe they worked in another tribal VR office and another tribal VR program, and they're coming to your program. So they may have a lot of those technical, like day-to-day providing services. They know the VR process, but they may not know the whole tribal structure and the whole tribal culture and stuff like that. So everyone's onboarding and orientation plan is going to be different. So it's up to you as a supervisor to kind of foster and guide that process successfully.
Can I say one thing? I also think for me, onboarding is also welcoming that new person into your team, into your all of your VR program staff, also just on the tribal department or whatever it is. That's also part of just welcoming them in and supporting them on what they need, and recognizing what they might know already, and then providing them the tools to get what they need.
So we're going to share, each one of us, Laura and I are going to share a personal story of our onboarding, a positive story. And see, these are some of the words that we thought of when we talk about someone who provided us a successful onboarding. This is Bobby Ursing. She was my boss in a prior position. That's me and her when I went to visit her in Zion. I thought that was a reflective of our relationship. We're miles apart, but we help each other. And she's only 4'11", and I'm almost like, I'm 5'11", and I'm like a foot taller than her. And she brought me in. I didn't know who she was. She was my boss. She worked at the University of Utah Medical Center and worked with a lot of doctors and faculty in NIH grants. And she came to NAU and was the director of the pre-award services at NAU. And I had never had an onboarding process like I went through with her. She was very motherly. She was stern. She was, I called her Eagle Eyes because she caught every mistake, everything, and she never got mad at me, but she was very patient with me. She had a lot of patience for not only me, but all the people that were hired. I was kind of like this new position. I was a part of a pilot study at this university, and she knew the importance of the position that I was hired for. She was very believer of customer service, but she made sure that all the people that she hired knew their job before she let them out. So there was every single day I had to sit next to her at her computer, and we went line by line on my job duties, my job responsibilities. And I was so, like, I can't sit through a bingo game. I can't sit through like getting nails done. I'm very impatient and just like sitting and doing that. And I had to just keep telling myself, trust the process, trust the process. That was in my head. And during that time, she provided me a deeper understanding of the field that I was hired for. I didn't even know that there was actually a job, a career, a whole network of people called research administrators. I didn't know that. And she taught me that, you know, this is an important job, and that the faculty were entrusted with me to provide customer service, to make sure that I was getting their grants in, that their budgets were being handled correctly. And so it took a whole year before I was put into the department to help the faculty. In that process, I had a new level of respect for Bobby that I was like, wow, she really took the time with me, and I've been indebted to her forever, because I've never had someone just sit me down and go through that process, and I really respect her for that. The relevance of that position and the how it related to the bigger university was like, aha, I get it now. I understand this position. The reciprocity is a term you know a lot of people use it in environmental fields and stuff like that, but how I look at reciprocity is that she provided me a wealth of knowledge, and now it's my turn to give that knowledge to other people. And so it keeps going on and on and on. And I hope that you guys do that as well in your field, because there's a lot of people who retire in those AIVRS positions, and you want to keep that knowledge on and on and on, you know, with your staff. And then that next staff teaches the next generation, because, you know, then there's a next generation of people who are going to be providing services in your community. The relationship that I have with Bobby is, you know, I've never had that before, where it's someone that I worked with, and now I have this relationship. I've been to her home in St. George, Utah. She retired from our university and moved to St. George, and my family is involved with her family, and so I just wanted to share that positive experience, because I learned so much, and now I want to teach other people that. So that's my kind of my onboarding story. You want to share yours?
Sure. So when I first started in TBR, I got a job as a voc rehab counselor with a tribe that was part of a consortium, and the tribe hadn't been really involved in the writing of the grant because it was written by the consortium office. So when I was hired, I, like, here's your office, and then handed the grant, and this is your job. And I had never read a grant before, and didn't really know what voc rehab was. And like I said, it wasn't the tribe's fault. They didn't know either, because they had just been part of the consortium that was funded. But I was really fortunate, because of all the tribes that are in the consortium, there was a VR counselor at each tribe. And then the director was at the consortium office. And so we just got together as a group, the 6 of us, and, we went to state training, because that's all that was available at the time. But we all learned what voc rehab was together. Even our director, she didn't know either really how it looked. So it was a really was just a really great experience as a group, and having us all have different parts of creating it together. We had to make our own forms. We had to, you know, just figure out what it was that we were supposed to be doing, basically. So, you know, it was definitely, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was sink or swim, because we had time to figure out what we were doing. We weren't expected to provide services, you know, within the first month. I think it took us maybe 4 or 5 months until I had a client. That's just kind of my story, is just that I think sometimes the grants are funded, but no one knows what to do yet, and you still have to figure out everything. And so that's why it's helpful to have other grantees maybe in your state or in your region that can help you. So we were able to get it off the ground, and it was successful while we were there, but we really started knowing nothing. So there's definitely endless learning opportunities.
Yeah, I'm sure that a lot of people on here today have the same similar experience as you, Laura. And maybe later on, if you guys would like to share maybe your onboarding and orientation story. So think about that. Also think about that when you're explaining this process with your staff, you know, giving them the story of how you learned about VR and AIVRS projects. So we're going to go into the actual tool now, so you guys get to see it and in real time. So the tool that we're going to present to you is intended for use by AIVRS directors and managers to help newly hired AIVRS employees learn about their job duties, AIVRS policies and procedures, tribal departments, organizational structure. It's designed to help AIVRS projects develop strategies for implementing an onboarding and orientation plan that best fits their needs while complementing their own tribal onboarding and orientation process. This tool is going to be yours, and you can modify it as however you want. So your tribe may already have a onboarding and orientation process as well. This one is going to be specific for the AIVRS project. The first thing that we're going to talk about is that there are prerequisites of hiring key personnel. This was came from August from RSA, and it's an important prerequisite that the tribal HR department needs to be made aware of, as well as if you're a director. Prior to hiring key personnel, and key personnel are those people defined in your grant as key personnel. There's going to be some staff that may have been put in your grant as other personnel. That one does not have to have RSA approval. But if they are key personnel, in particular, the AIVRS director or the VR counselor, okay, they must provide the assigned RSA project program officer with the candidate's resume and a letter requesting for hiring. So you guys would, whoever the hiring person is, will need to contact either Veronica or August or whoever your project officer is, and you need to provide them the resume and a letter requesting that. RSA may then approve the hiring of the key personnel on a provisional status, and that means that there's certain conditions and terms that have been met, or the tribe may, or the RSA may put them in temporary or interim basis. That means that they may need to have a little bit more discussion with a project officer. And then once approved, the director will need to sign up with the G5. Do you have anything to say about this, Laura?
No, I think that covers it.
Yeah, and that's very, very important for RSA to know that if you hired someone, that you've gone through this process. Some of the things that happen when they're put in provisional status or temporary interim basis, RSA may come back and say, you need to take some courses at Northwest Indian College TVR Institute to have full approval. Or you may need to watch a series of videos on the AIVRTTAC website. Or you need to read the TVR Institute handbook or the financial management toolkit, all those kind of things to get you up to speed in the position that you are going to, take on. So there'll be a plan in place, and as a director, that's important to include in the onboarding process. The onboarding tool is set up in 3 sections. The first part is for human resources or the supervisor and what their responsibilities are before the new employee starts work. You want to make sure there's certain things in place before that person comes to the job. The second part are the supervisor's responsibilities after the employee has started work. And that may include what happens on day 1. This may include what's happening in the first week, the first 30 days, after the first 30 days. And then suggested activities and tasks for new employees to do during downtime. I also wanted to note that the onboarding tool is sometimes a supervisor may not have all the time to provide, make sure each one of those things are being addressed in the process. And so they may assign maybe a lead counselor, another person on a job to explain, forms, how you guys, the copier machine, or how you guys file. So some of those duties may be given out to other staff, and it's not going to all rest on the supervisor. But overall, it is a supervisor's responsibility to make sure that this is successfully done. Okay, let me, I'm going to stop share and I'm going to bring up the tool and we're going to go through it, okay? Can you guys see it?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to go over this. So the onboarding tool that we will have on our website, but it will be emailed to you guys later today, is 5 pages long. So the original one was only 1 page, but after, we all worked on it and included in it, added to it, it became 5 pages. It probably could have been 10 pages, seriously. The first page is just kind of giving you an overview of the tool and what onboarding and orientation is. What are some of the outcomes of using an onboarding orientation plan and checklists? The top of the second page is the prerequisites for hiring key personnel for your AIVRS project, and that's all right here. Here on is where you can modify it. You can add it to your current checklist. But it just helps guide the process with whoever you're hiring. Include their name, who their supervisor is, what is their job title, and what is their start date. In this section is, like I said, is the first part, and this is where the human resources or the supervisor responsibilities are before that employee starts. For some tribes, there is an I-9 documentation where they have to complete the section 2 of that form. Make sure that is being done, and that could be someone else's responsibility, like the HR department. So the list may be a lot, but just make sure that you guys are, working with your HR department, because some of this may not be your responsibility, but we had to put it in here because for some programs, this was a responsibility for them, for the AIVRS director. Here are some tasks that you can, make sure that the necessary equipment is ready for a new employee. I have started jobs where I didn't even have a computer. I was hired over Christmas break, and I came in and no one was around to give me a laptop. So I did a lot of things on my phone. I went to the campus HR department myself to figure out my job. You know, is there a computer login that this person, you know, you want to get them set up so that when they come in, they feel welcome. They have the necessary equipment and supplies necessary to start their job. Send welcome information to the new employee. You know, who is their supervisor? What is their phone number? Is there, you know, remind them to bring a photo ID with them on their first day. Copies of project specific policies that they need to be aware of, like, you know, smoking is only in designated areas, or it's not done on the tribal campus or whatever. Fragrance, you know, we have a lot of people that are sensitive to fragrances here at IHD. And so we have a lot of signs where people are advised not to wear perfume and cologne here. You know, smudging, maybe there's project specific policies on that. You know, making them feel welcome is like, where is the place to eat, directions to offices, parking information. Those are important, especially if they've never worked for the tribe. Maybe they're a non-native and they're coming in and they're new to the area. You know, helping them register for the tribal department orientation. You know, clean the workspace. I've been in positions too where I've come in and no one cleaned the desk, no one has vacuumed, no one has dusted or anything. And so, you know, having someone come in, just clean up and make them feel welcome in their office space or cubby. Setting up the mailbox and mail slot is always a nice touch, you know, putting their name there. I remember when I came back to IHD, someone put a NAU cookie on my desk, and I thought that was really nice and welcoming. And then preparing an agenda and materials for the new employee when they do come, you know, sending all that kind of stuff beforehand so that they're aware of what's happening on day one. So all of that can be done prior to that person's first day. Then it goes into a checklist of the supervisor's responsibility when that employee arrives. You know, what happens on day one? So are you walking them around, introducing the new hire to people, giving them a tour of the office and the tribal complex, showing them where the restrooms are, where the lounges are, where they eat. So you can read that. I won't go into each one, but I guess the first day is just making them feel welcome. I wanted to say real quick too, is like because there has been a lot of new employees with tribal VR, we really want to develop a career for your new employees. And it really starts on day one. You want them to feel welcome, that this journey that they're going to take with you is a process, and the importance of the job that they are hired for. This job is needed. There's a lot of people who need VR services in your community, and that they're taking on this really big responsibility, and that you need them, right? You want them to feel needed, and that there's opportunities out there. There's opportunities to grow. There's opportunities for upward mobility, that you may start as a VR tech, but with, you know, attending Northwest Indian College classes and attending conferences and furthering your education, that you can become a VR counselor, and you can become a CRC, and eventually maybe you can become a director of a AIVRS project. And so you want them to understand that this is just not a job. There's a career that's behind this, and that we're going to work together on this so that you can stay with the project longer. Okay, there's an investment in their career. That's all I'm saying. Want to say anything, Laura?
No, I think that's good. It's just about knowing that you value that they're there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So after the first day, so you're going to arrange this, you can spread this out in 2 days, maybe 3 days. And then here's another checklist of what could happen in the first week. And you can spread this over 2 weeks as well. But these are, talking about getting more into what is needed, like wellness center, talk about standard operating procedures and IT security awareness training, and then going into the particulars of your project's policies and procedures. When you start going through the grant proposal and what the goals and objectives of the grant are, that could happen in the first week. And that's really important to make them understand that you're funded for 5 years, you have certain certain measurable outcomes that need to be addressed, and talking about the special application requirements and the confidentiality, talking about state VR. There's so much stuff, talk about the MOU, and that is a lot that could happen over a few days. And then part of this, I also included topics to cover in week 1. So you have this list of things, but maybe you start divvying up the topics that are occurring in that first week. And so, excuse me, so we kind of give you a guide of what you can talk about, or maybe as a staff presenting to this new employee, what is the rehab history? What is the AIVRS history? We, AIVRTTAC recently had a webinar on the AIVRS history, and that was presented by Treva Roanhorse and Elmer Guy. And so that's a recording that is on our website that you can share with your staff. Your staff can listen in on, put them on a computer and they can listen in on the AIVRS history. It's a 2-hour presentation. In addition, you can refer them to the TVR Institute, the handbook, because there's a lot of history in there. You start talking about the rules and regulations of the project. Maybe on the next day, you have AIVRS policy and the VR process and the flow chart, like how that, how does that work? You can talk about goals and objectives. And then it goes into like what could happen within the first 30 days. In addition, like topics to cover in week 2. Here's a whole list of topics that can be covered in week 2, week 3, and week 4. So we have it all kind of laid out what could happen in that first month of your new staff. After the 30 days, we get into like a little more of like competency levels. And that is a plan that you should really look into. What is the AIVRS mission and vision of your particular project? What is the AIVRS purpose? What is assistive technology? Are you aware of where your assistive technology lab is in your state? Going into detail about how the case files are arranged and organized. What are your case management practices? Confidentiality. So each one of these is a lot to cover, and it may not just all be you're talking to the employee, but you can refer them to resources outside of your office. You can provide resources that are on the internet or with the state VR, and you have the TVR Institute and AIVRTTAC there also provide that have recordings and tools to help with these competencies. What is informed choice? What is traditional healing in the AIVRS project? And then, of course, the VR process, which I'm going to touch on in a few minutes. And then part of this tool, I did put suggest activities during downtime, and Laura corrected me. She said, I don't think there's any downtime in AIVRS on a day. But as the days go on, some people may get busy, may get called into meetings, and the plan for onboarding orientation may be halted for a day or a half a day or something. And so you want them to be aware of what they can still do, in this, I have to go to run to a meeting, I have something I need to do for my family. But in the meantime, why don't you visit AIVRTTAC's website, or why don't you go to AIVRTTAC's YouTube channel? There's a wealth of resources. Just work your way through that YouTube. also on the TVR website. Go through all those resources, read the financial management toolkit, download the financial toolkit, or request if there's another a copy available to you. On the TVR has instructional videos of the that is that on YouTube, Laura?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So there's a lot of resources that you can do in the event that you need to step away, and it's more like self-learning and stuff like that. And that is a lot. There's a lot out there. So that is the tool. And the goal is for a new VR counselor is to have a full caseload by the 12-month mark. And that's going to be different for a lot of people. There's going to be some people who have had prior VR experience. There's going to be people who are going to pick it up quickly, maybe some that have transferable skills and stuff like that. So everyone's going to be different. But the goal of if there's someone coming in and they have no prior work experience or whatever, it could take 12 months for them to learn everything. Okay. I'm going to stop share real quick and stop to see if you guys had any questions. Is there anything? Oh, Wayne just said that everyone's being really quiet. Yeah. So is there any questions? Anything you guys like to say about the tool real quick before we move on real quick? Hello out there. No questions?
No questions from me, Judy.
No, that was funny. Hello.
Right on time. So let me start. Okay. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, your tribe's history and the culture that you guys have. And so for now, I'm Navajo. So for our tribe, we have a Navajo philosophy of learning, and they're different, you know, Navajo Oshers, the tribal VR program, they use this same philosophy, as well as at the tribal college. I got this one from the Dene College website and their philosophy of learning at the tribal college. And I just wanted you guys to, you know, as you're going through this process, think about what your tribal philosophy or your way of life, the way you guys explain VR, and bringing in your culture and how you explain things to your family or your kids, and how can you incorporate that into this process, because they're learning about an important job, important project that is servicing, providing VR services. And so Navajo, there's the sacred mountain, there's the basket, and there's a process involved and the directions. And so with Navajo, they use it as part of the VR process. In Hopi, they use corn, the growth of corn, the sacred corn, and how each part of growing corn is can be used in the AIVRS project, and it can be also used as an onboarding tool. You know, we're providing you water, we're providing you nutrients, and so it's the same as providing you information and tools and equipment so that you can be a successful member of this team. And it's the same way with the Navajo philosophy of learning, is that in the beginning, you're thinking and you're assessing and you're learning. And then the next thing is you're planning like what's the next step? Well, how am I going to do it? And then there's the implementation where you're actually providing those services. And then next is fulfillment. You know, you get your first client, your first participant a job, and how did that go? Or there's the evaluation portion where your supervisor is evaluating your process in the new hire. So I just wanted to say that when you're going through this, it's to include that tribal flair, that important tribal culture in there. Go ahead, Wayne.
Hey, I know I just had a couple things pop up in the chat box I wanted to share. And I don't know if Jamie is being funny or serious, so I'm just gonna say it. Jamie Hall asked, hello, what does a full caseload look like?
Yeah.
Now, I took that both ways, right? So it was like during COVID and all this fun stuff that we're dealing with, none of us have had a full caseload in a while. So what does that feel like? What does that look like? In kind of a humorous way, but also as a newbie, what does a full caseload look like? And then there's also another chat from I always mess up her name, Miss Chi. I'm going to do that.
Gee,
And I'm going to be interviewing for 2 new counselors and a rehab tech. This is going to be very helpful.
great.
And then Tricia says I'll be hiring a new counselor. This is needed. So I'm going to open that up for you. You can chat with Jamie about it. I just wanted you to hear that.
Do you want to answer that, Laura? What does a full caseload look like?
I would say, well, it depends on what your whole project caseload is like. It's nothing like a state caseload, really, I hope, where they have 150 cases, but I would say 30 to 40. When I was a director, that might be the top of what someone had as a full caseload. But really, I think it depends on what the caseload is for the project and what the person can manage. You know, theoretically, the more experienced you are, the more cases you could have on your caseload, but that they're all different types of complexity and energy that they might take. So it also depends on the person, I think.
Can I jump in real quick too?
Of course.
I that's kind of, I get to do that as director. I get to butt my nose in where I want to. The other part of a caseload that I always stress to people is a lot of times when we come in as a new staff, the first thing we do is we look at all these cases and we just dump them. We get rid of all the ones that haven't been moving or they haven't been worked with in a while. So we just get rid of them. And what happens is later on, all of a sudden we have no cases and we can't get new applicants to come in because maybe per cap comes out or something, or land buyback happens. And we're stuck with 1 or 2 people on our caseloads. And all of a sudden we aren't able to meet our successful outcomes and that type of thing. While we are very much individual or participant focused, we still have to meet RSA's requirements and what our goals in our grant says. So we have to pay attention to that. So part of caseload is also, or our full caseload is management of that caseload. We have people going to school for post-secondary education, maybe some vocational training. We have people that are actively searching for employment. We have people with self-employment plans being developed. So just to have a really nice rounded caseload is what I see is more important than actually a full caseload, because we need to have up and comers fill in the spot of the people that are successfully exiting out and that type of thing. So I just wanted to throw that in there too, as part of our onboarding process, is learning that the technique of balancing your cases. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. So we're almost at the end, but we have some opportunities available to you when you're talking with your new staff that we want you to be aware of, and we hope that you sign up. The first thing is that we have a VR process webinar series that is going to be coming up in March and April and May. So you can see the the focus area on the days. So you should be receiving that this week. This week's AWU will have the registration link for that first one that's going to occur next Wednesday. That is headed up by Jamie Hall and is it Laura? I don't know who's doing the first one.
No.
I can't remember. Sorry.
Sorry. Jamie Emanuel.
Just you on next Wednesday?
No, next Wednesday will be myself, Jamie Emanuel, and will be Nancy Riddick, who is a content expert with AIVRTTAC, also in the University of Texas.
Okay, so that's a great opportunity for your new staff to get on board the VR process webinar series. The second thing, I'll leave to Laura to explain this.
Oh, so these are our spring quarter classes. The quarter starts April 6th, which is a Wednesday, and it ends on June 17th, which is a Friday. So it's a 10-week quarter. And every quarter we offer the TVRS 301 history class. And then that's like a history and orientation to AIVRS projects. We have the 302 class, which is communication. So it's communication with your participants and then also within the tribal government or system. 303 is the disability assessment and eligibility class. 307 is the resource management, which is pretty much all the resources that you might utilize as a counselor or a program staff. TVRS 308 is the addiction and TVR services course, and 312 is advanced counseling techniques.
So you guys have a lot available to you. In addition, in April, I believe it's in April, Wayne, you might have to correct me, we are going to have a virtual boot camp that's going to be over a series of couple days that is going to cover a whole bunch of stuff for new staff, new directors. In addition, June, we have the IHD conference, and there is going to be an in-person opportunity for training as well. So you want to elaborate on that, Wayne?
Yeah, thank you, Nona. So probably the third week of April, as what I'm guessing right now. We'll be sending out the information shortly. We're gonna start a series, kind of like Nona said, a boot camp. In the first week will be a 2-day virtual Zoom meeting, and then a week we'll skip a week, and then so the third week we'll have another 2-day, and then the fifth week we're gonna have a single day. So it is a fairly large time commitment, but the material is going to be focused on the VR process from beginning to end, all the different steps and how to implement those steps. Hopefully at that point we'll have our case file example up and running, so we can have actual hands-on case file examples. And then we're also going to be working on the employment development and placement models and techniques. And then we're going to bring in some assistive technology training on what is assistive technology and how do we access assistive technology in our tribal projects on tribal land. So that'll be the virtual piece. From that, we'll take feedback from the participants, and we'll modify the second training opportunity, which is going to be at the post IHD conference in June. And the nice thing about that is we have ASTAP available at in that location. So the Assistive Technology Center is willing to give us a tour. So we'll do, we're going to break into a couple different groups, go through and tour all the assistive technology that's available through ASTAP. So we get some hands-on experience with these tools and adaptive equipment. So it's really great opportunity. And watch your email. And if you don't get our weekly update, let us know. We'll get you on the listserv.
Thank you. So again, AIVRTTAC VR webinar series. In addition, there's going to be more. There's director support group. There's talking circles. There's the TVR Institute spring classes, and there's going to be 2 boot camps coming up. So a lot available to your new staff members and everyone else too, of course. So today we talked about the difference between onboarding and orientation. We showed you the actual tool and checklist that is going to be available to you, and you can do whatever you want with it. You're going to learn, you learned about how the onboarding plan can support a successful hire. Here are some reflection questions that I hope that you guys can, turn on your camera, turn on, turn up your mics and ask some questions, answer these questions, So what are your first thoughts about this tool, this checklist? Is it positive or negative? Is it something that you will be able to use in your job? Can you tell us what was the most important thing that you learned personally? How do you feel this relates to real world situations and problems? What did you learn? What are the big areas of improvement for your project? Maybe think about what you're onboarding, what you've been doing, and would you do things differently now? Can you teach this process to someone else? And I hope you can, that you have this tool and you have this, you be able to share this with other people. What would you do differently the next time you hire someone? And how will you use what you've learned in the future? So can you share that with me? Anyone? Just tell me what you think of the tool. Lisa?
Do you want me to start picking on people?
Yeah, you're good
Okay.
at it.
All right, we'll see who's on. I'm gonna get my participant list up here and I'm gonna start calling people out. So there's a lot of people in here that are hiring new people. Mrs. Rachel Allen, would you jump on here for a quick minute? And I know your camera never works, so I already know what you're gonna say. Oh, damn, it looks like she had to leave. Let me
No, I'll step up and say that looking at, this is Judy Fowler. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Judy.
Okay. I think that looking at this tool, as she went over it, that they're pretty thorough in the checklist. And if we follow the checklist, and how, and learn all of the, the little ins and outs and the checklist, I think it would be it's a efficient tool to follow. It's self-explanatory. And if you have the type of that good hospitality type personality, you know how to welcome people in your home. Come in, have a seat. Can I get you anything? Would you like something to eat or drink? There's always, when you're welcoming someone, you try to think of all the aspects to make that person feel comfortable, to feel welcomed, and feel like they are part of. And I think that that's something that we bring to the table and put together with the checklist.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Thank you, Judy.
So Earl, we had a great conversation. Would you be willing to reflect on any of these?
Yeah, actually, I was just typing to you guys. Good morning, everyone. So this is actually a big help. Both the director and I are brand new. We got here and the office was empty. And we're also in the middle of packing. We just finished doing our case review of the 50 cases, and it does look like we're gonna have to close a lot of them. So everything that you have on your checklists and your tools will definitely help us. I think even though I've been here only a month, she's been here about a month and a half. This is something that we should go back to and just make sure, even between ourselves, review,
That's great to hear. And I'd like to hear feedback after you go through that as well.
Yeah, so we're basically going from ground up, if we're even on the ground yet.
And where are you from? What project and what state are you located?
I'm with ICAS here in Barrow, Alaska.
Oh, wow, wow.
So send us all your sunshine.
Great.
And thank you
Hey,
guys.
Earl, I hear talking.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said, was that Earl that I hear?
Yes, Earl's a girl.
Hey there. I had just put in the chat there because my connection's kind of wonky today. This is just a great way to start the onboarding process for your new staff, getting them acclimated to the office, your policies and procedures, getting them a computer, a phone, all the resources that they need to start working. And then once they're, during the onboard process, then the second portion, I guess, of the onboarding would be to introduce them to the VR process and about voc rehab if they don't have any experience. What we want to do sometimes is to rush right into seeing participants, to get people in the office, start taking applications. But really, it's important to take your time, not to rush, but really take your time during this onboarding process.
I just want to say too that, sorry, Wayne, that, this is in Word, so you can customize it to however your practices are, where, at your tribe, some of these first day, before the first day kinds of things. So you can definitely make it your own to fit what you do there.
So in the chat box, Leslie got on here and said that she thought the checklist would be so helpful to have. It seemed pretty thorough on the training process. She had absolutely no VR background when she started and was completely clueless. I did get some training, but nothing like going through that list. And she thinks if we went through the process, she would feel a lot more confident in her position. And that's the whole point of the onboarding and orientation, is that you do have that foundation to build on. And to go on with what Laura had said, we are going to have links to all of these materials on our website. Now we're updating, we're getting a new face, we're facelifting our website page right now, and it's a little rough. So if you go visit our site, know that we are still working on it. It's going to be great when we're done. But as we started getting into it, John and Winona and I realized that the process is a little more detailed than what we had originally thought. And we're a little behind on the schedule. But we will have all of these forms updated, and links will be on our website once it's complete. And all of the materials we're providing, we do it in a Word format and a PDF format, so that you can alter and change for your projects.
Thank you. So I put in the chat the survey. It will also be the link to the survey, end of event survey will also be sent to you by email, as well as a copy of the recording, copy of the the PowerPoint slide, and the actual tool. So you'll receive that either today or tomorrow, okay? Thank you all for your attendance and being here with me today and being with Laura. We look forward to seeing you in our VR process webinar series, as well as the other opportunities we have, as well as the talking circle, and there is a director's support group that you will hear. All of this will be in the weekly update this Friday. If you have any questions about this tool, this webinar, please contact Laura and I, and we will be able to answer any questions that you have and any feedback that you have about this tool as well. I want this tool to be the best thing for you guys, okay? And that's it. Thank you all. You guys have a good day. Oh,